Hello everyone, my name is Brennan Marr. That noise you're hearing is my ventilator, and welcome to Page Turners They Were Not, my Star Wars podcast. Today is the day that we're going to talk about my favorite character in all of Star Wars, Emperor Palpatine himself. So let's jump in. We first meet Palpatine as the humble and unassuming senator from Naboo, representing the world to the Congress of the Galactic Republic. We first meet him trying to send a holographic message to Queen Amidala, but only to have the transmission cut off. We then don't see him as Palpatine until our heroes arrive on the planet Coruscant. However, we have seen him as the evil Lord Darth Sidious. Darth Sidious was commanding the Trade Federation to blockade the planet of Naboo, which of course they did. Queen Amidala and company were able to escape the planet, being saved by R2-D2, go figure. However, they were sidetracked and had to land on Tatooine. Darth Sidious and his apprentice, Darth Maul, were able to track them, and Sidious, who is Palpatine, sent Maul to confront the Jedi on Tatooine. He did. Maul confronted Qui-Gon Jinn in the sands of Tatooine, thus revealing the Sith to be alive and well, even though the Jedi believed they'd been extinct for a millennium. Now we, as audience members, didn't know officially that Palpatine was Darth Sidious until episode 3. And even though I was 13 years old when I saw it, I didn't think that Sidious was Palpatine. Until I think somebody pointed it out to me. Yes, believe it or not, I was that naive. When our heroes arrive in Coruscant, they meet with Senator Palpatine. Palpatine believes that the Republic is falling apart, and that the Senate is rather useless, full of greedy, squabbling delegates, as he puts it. He then convinces Queen Amidala to put forth a vote of no confidence, or a motion of no confidence against Chancellor Valorum, who was the leader of the Republic at the time. Queen Amidala did so, and the senators, who collectively were displeased with Chancellor Valorum's leadership, voted him out of office. Palpatine was then nominated alongside 2 other senators to be the next Supreme Chancellor. Now, in one of the few moments I think that Palpatine did not foresee, as he is a very Machiavellian plans within plans kind of guy, Queen Amidala decided, because the Senate wasn't moving fast enough to solve the blockade on Naboo, she decided to return to Naboo of her own accord. Palpatine tried to convince her to stay, but she would not be swayed. Amidala returned to Naboo, rallied the Gungans to her cause, and directed a bold plan to defeat the Trade Federation, which succeeded. Darth Maul was defeated as well, and Sidious's plans, as far as Naboo is concerned, were thwarted. However, he succeeded as Palpatine in being elected Supreme Chancellor, arriving on Naboo to participate in the celebration of the liberation of the planet. He said, of course, the iconic line to Anakin, "We will watch your career with great interest." Then we jump to 10 years later, where Palpatine is still Supreme Chancellor, having stayed in office longer than he should have because of the Separatist crisis, which, yet again, in his guise as Darth Sidious, he was secretly behind the Separatist crisis. The leader of the Separatist cause was Count Dooku, who was secretly Darth Tyrannus, a Dark Lord of the Sith, who was the apprentice, the new apprentice, of Darth Sidious. Palpatine was very deeply involved with Anakin's career and believed that Anakin didn't need guidance and was a great Jedi, and was very pleased that the Jedi Council finally gave Anakin an assignment. After Obi-Wan's discovery of the clone army being grown on Kamino, and the Separatist crisis escalating, Palpatine needed to be voted more emergency powers. Palpatine was able to convince the rather naive representative from Naboo, Representative Biggs, to call a motion to grant emergency powers to the Chancellor. As Senator Amidala, formerly the Queen of Naboo, was off-world under the protection of Anakin Skywalker. The gambit paid off as the senators agreed to vote Palpatine more emergency powers, which Palpatine used to employ the clone army in service of the Republic. After the Separatists, led by Count Dooku, succeeded in beginning the war, Dooku returned to Coruscant to meet with Darth Sidious, informing him that the war had begun. And Sidious said, "Everything is going as planned." We then jump to 3 years later to the end of the Clone Wars. When the story begins, Palpatine has been kidnapped by General Grievous, the military leader of the Separatists, or Confederacy of Independent Systems, if you prefer. Anakin and Obi-Wan, now both fully fledged Jedi Knights, went on a daring rescue mission to rescue the Chancellor. After Obi-Wan was knocked out of the fight, Anakin defeated Count Dooku in a lightsaber battle. Palpatine, however, ordered Anakin to kill Dooku, saying the infamous line, "Do it," which Anakin did and killed Count Dooku. Anakin felt bad about it, but Palpatine reassured him, saying, "He cut off your arm, you wanted revenge. It's only natural." And then reminding Anakin about Anakin's slaughter of the Sand People after they murdered his mother on Tatooine. Palpatine then later, in my favorite scene in the prequel trilogy, or maybe not favorite, but one of my favorite scenes, at the Coruscant Opera House, shared a story with Anakin about the Sith legend, as he called it, of Darth Plagueis the Wise. Anakin had been plagued by nightmares about losing Padme. About Padme dying in childbirth after he learned that she was pregnant. Palpatine shared the story about Darth Plagueis being able to supposedly able to use the Force to keep his loved ones from dying. Anakin was intrigued by this offer. Anakin said, "Is it possible to learn this power?" And Palpatine said, "Not from a Jedi." He had said to Anakin that the dark side is a path that leads to things that are considered unnatural. The Sith seem to have an obsession with bending the natural order to their will instead of accepting it. Later, when Anakin was meeting with Palpatine, Palpatine revealed himself to be Darth Sidious. Anakin was very conflicted. He knew the right thing to do was to turn Palpatine in. But he knew that if he were to kill him or turn him over to the authorities, he might lose the ability to learn those Force techniques that Palpatine had hinted at. As Anakin was desperate to save Padme's life, convinced that she was going to die. Anakin was also tempted to kill Palpatine himself, which Palpatine said, was a good thing. Anakin chose to inform Mace Windu that Palpatine was the Sith Lord. Mace, CC10, and Kit Fisto, and Eithkoff, I forget, I'm that nerdy, confronted Palpatine. He made short work of the three other Jedi, but engaged Mace Windu in a furious duel. Anakin arrived and ultimately chose to side with Palpatine and participated in the death of Mace Windu. Palpatine realized his plan had succeeded and he had twisted Anakin to the dark side. Anakin pledged himself to Palpatine. This, of course, is after Palpatine actually, no, this is before. Anakin pledged himself and led the attack on the Jedi Temple, which killed most of the Jedi, and then Palpatine sent him Anakin to Mustafar to, quote-unquote, take care of the Separatist Council. Palpatine then declared himself Emperor. And after Anakin's final duel with Obi-Wan, Palpatine participated in Anakin's more or less rebirth as Darth Vader encased within the dark armor that is iconic. Palpatine then engaged, or rather, before Anakin was badly injured during his fight with Obi-Wan, Palpatine had engaged Yoda in a lightsaber battle, ultimately defeating Yoda. Yoda, of course, went into exile. Palpatine's plans were then complete, and construction of the Death Star began. Um, 19 years later, Luke Skywalker destroyed the Death Star. 3 years after that, while Darth Vader was conducting his own search for Luke, having learned that this young pilot was his son, Palpatine became aware of Luke and warned Darth Vader in a holographic message to him or in a holographic communication with Darth Vader, warned him that Luke could destroy them. Vader was able to convince Palpatine that it would be better, instead of killing Luke, of turning him to their cause, that he would be a powerful asset. Palpatine was convinced by this and said, "Can it be done?" And Vader said, "He will join us or die." Later, of course, Luke and Vader fought their ferocious duel at Cloud City, after which Vader revealed himself to be the father of Luke. A year later, Luke on Endor voluntarily turned himself over to Darth Vader in an attempt to turn Darth Vader to the light side, which almost succeeded at first, but then Vader chose his darker side. Vader then told Luke he was going to take him to the Emperor, saying, "He is your master now." Luke was brought before the Emperor, who was on the second Death Star. Yet another technological terror designed to bring the galaxy war under his rule. Palpatine declared himself to be Luke's new master and tried to convince him to accept the dark side, which Luke did for a moment. The Emperor was finally able to get Luke. Luke used the Force to pull his lightsaber to him and was about to strike down the Emperor, when Vader clashed blades with Luke to prevent that, which is exactly what the Emperor wanted. Luke and Vader then engaged in a ferocious duel, where Luke, stalwartly claiming that he would not fight his father, was goaded into attacking in anger, when Vader suggested that maybe Leia would join his cause. Luke, at that moment, embraced the dark side, defeated Vader, chopping off Vader's hand, and nearly killing his father. But then he got a hold of himself and realized that he was becoming like his father. He looked at his own robotic hand and looked at the hand that he had cut off from Vader and saw that they were very similar. Luke then stalwartly chose that he would not fight, tossing away his lightsaber and saying, "You failed, Your Highness. I'm a Jedi like my father before me." To which Palpatine responded, "So be it, gently." And then Palpatine let forth a barrage of lightning on Luke, with the intention to kill him. However, at that very moment, Vader, seeing his son in agony, chose the right, chose the light side, chose to save his son, picked up the Emperor, and chucked him down, and threw him down a long shaft. And the Emperor, lightning still coming out of his fingers, exploded in a ball of dark side energy. Quite an impressive special effect. And of course, at that moment, when Anakin Skywalker got a hold of himself and threw off the Vader persona, he defeated the Emperor, brought balance to the Force, and fulfilled his destiny. And that is the end of Palpatine. What we're going to see in The Rise of Skywalker I don't know. Palpatine's my favorite Star Wars character. Ian McDiarmid brings such an over-the-top energy to the role that fits so perfectly. I enjoy every minute with Palpatine on screen. To me, he's so good in the prequels. And they expand so much on his character. That enriches the character. Which, reminds me of how very little we see of him in the original trilogy. Yet the impression he leaves on us is quite amazing. I think Ian McDiarmid is fantastic and deserves a lot of praise. This character is one of the few characters I think that's well written in Star Wars in terms of his Machiavellian plots within plots. Kind of manipulative behavior. He's absolutely brilliant as a character. I love every minute he's on screen. And it's so amazing that this same actor has been able to play the character for so many years. And by the way, side note, he was 37 years old when he played the Emperor in Return of the Jedi. I just turned 34 yesterday. That puts it in perspective. That definitely puts it in perspective. So those are my thoughts on Emperor Palpatine. Let me know what you think about this Galactic Tyrant. My name is Brendan Marr. That noise you hear is my ventilator. Thank you for tuning in to Page Turners They Were Not, my Star Wars podcast. May the Force be with you.